So you've decided you want to become a documentary filmmaker. You're interested in a life of learning about the world, meeting new people and new cultures, and understanding how others are living their lives. The same things hooked me over 10 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. And if you're anything like me, there probably isn't a better job out there. Through documentaries, I've gone to some of the wildest places in the world with incredible people, and I can't really see doing anything else with my life. But before you get to that stage, you're gonna have to decide one super important thing that will define the rest of your career. I'm not talking about choosing that first project or buying a new camera. If you want to make documentaries for the long term and keep making them year after year, you're gonna have to figure this out whether you want to or not. And the sooner the better, in my opinion. So what am I talking about? What decision is more important than jumping into the world of documentary filmmaking with both feet? You need to figure out how to make money. And in today's video, I'm gonna go over 3 of the different ways that I know of, and at the end, I'll tell you which one I'd go for if I were starting over again today. So let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Luke Forsyth, and on this channel, I teach the skills I've learned over 10 years working as a documentary filmmaker and photographer. These days, the word filmmaker is thrown around so much on the internet that it doesn't quite mean what it used to. A filmmaker used to be a word reserved for people making movies while everyone else was a videographer. These days, the meaning has changed to the point where basically anyone who creates videos calls themselves a filmmaker. And while there might be some elitists out there who don't think everyone has the right to be called a real filmmaker, I think it's a positive development. Good cameras are affordable and more stories are getting told these days than ever before, which I think is the whole point, especially for documentaries. But if you want to have a career as a documentary filmmaker, not just someone who made one short film once, you need to figure out how to do it for the long haul. And if you're going to make that happen, you need to figure out this one thing as quickly as possible. How are you going to make money? That might sound really obvious, but believe me, there are many different ways you can have a career as a doc filmmaker, and in this video, I'm going to look at 3 of the different paths you could take when starting out. Money is a weird subject, and people can sometimes get awkward talking about it, but as creatives, we need to get over that stigma because we all need it, and the more transparent we are, the better. I think there can be some real confusion out there about how documentary filmmakers actually survive, and that's why I wanted to make this video. A lot of people seem to think that I spend all my time shooting my own projects, just like wandering around, finding things that interest me and making films about it. The truth is that personal work like this is a small portion of what I do, and that's largely because of financial reasons. The reality is that there is not a lot of money in making personal documentary films in my experience, at least not until you start working with big teams and big budgets. If you're into your 3rd season of a popular Netflix show like Last Chance U or Cheer, that's different. But if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that's not you yet. For a lot of us, a good result for one of our projects might be getting it into a film festival or maybe having it published by a big online news outlet. You might even get a few $1,000s for your project, but considering how much time and energy it takes to make one of these things, you'll be lucky if you break even. But that doesn't mean there isn't money out there. So hold on before you click off this video in despair. I've made 100% of my income with the camera for over a decade now, and I think I've had a pretty decent life. All I'm trying to say is that when you're starting out, you're not going to be able to just shoot whatever you want and expect the cash to come rolling in. I wish that was the way it worked, but it doesn't. At the same time, I'm definitely not saying that you shouldn't do work that you think is important, even if it doesn't make you rich. Your personal work is what's gonna help you stand out from other people and get you both paying jobs and funding so that you can keep going, and you absolutely need to do as much personal work as possible. But how do you pay for it? Before I get into the 3 main paths I know of, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna assume that you're interested in keeping your paying work within the realm of filmmaking. If you're a doctor or lawyer or whatever, and you just wanna make docs as a side hobby with no intention of it becoming a job, that's super cool and you have my respect. I'm talking more about the people who want to stay in the industry to get paid work in film while they make projects and grow as filmmakers. The first path is the one I took personally, so I'll start there because it's the one I'm most familiar with. Years ago, I decided to move from Cambodia to Mexico and make a switch from photojournalism to documentary filmmaking. It took a while to get going, but eventually I caught a lucky break and got hired on a National Geographic show about heroin production. That was my first time working on a crew, and it was a major light bulb moment when I understood that there were actually paying jobs out there in making documentaries. The doc industry is an industry, and a documentary film crew might have anywhere from 3 to 15 people who are all specialists in different areas of production. There were assistants and fixers and producers and sound guys, directors and DPs, and everyone had a role to play. We were all working for National Geographic, and none of us, the director included, thought that what we were doing was a personal project. But we were all getting paid. And when that shoot was over, I was able to take the money I made as a camera operator and use it to fund a personal project I was working on about chronic water shortages in Mexico. And that's the first way that you can support yourself in this world. Get a job in the mainstream documentary industry. There are so many different ways you could go about this, from reaching out to production companies, starting as a PA, or training yourself up as a sound recordist, maybe offering your services as a fixer for film crews in your local local area. You might not love your starting position, but you'll be in the world of documentaries at least, where you can learn from more experienced people, and then you can take that money and use it to make your own stuff. Now don't get me wrong, you can make decent money working on other people's docs, but it's far from the most lucrative way to make money with a camera. Making your own documentaries takes some serious cash, and there's a real argument to be made for chasing the biggest money you can so that you can invest it in more personal projects. Some of the highest rates out there are in the commercial world, and it's totally possible to make thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars a day shooting ads at a high level. And this is the second filmmaking path you could take in order to make money. In fact, one of my favorite filmmaking YouTubers, Mark Bone, who is a super talented doc DP, makes, or at least made, a lot of his income from commercials. Because he doesn't have to worry about paying his basic bills, he's able to go out and take chances on making documentaries that he thinks are interesting. Now, I don't know Mark, and even though we're both Canadian, contrary to popular belief, not everyone up here knows each other. I'd love to sit down with him one day, but I'm guessing not all of the docs he makes turn a profit, and I'm sure that's okay with him. He covers his financial bases working for people like Nike or Nikon, and that gives him the freedom to take creative risks with his own time. These days, Mark also has a big YouTube following and a great online course, so maybe he's not involved in the commercial world so much. Like I said, I don't know the guy. I've heard him mention that he sold something to CNN as well, so it also shows that you can eventually make real money with personal documentaries. But without that foundation in the commercial world, who knows if he could have stayed in the film industry long enough to have gotten to that point. If you're motivated by telling stories about the world, making ads for big brands might seem a little off-putting, but you'll be honing your skills and making money while planning your next doc project. The Wandering DP, who has one of the best podcasts out there for cinematographers, has an amazing course on the business of commercials if you're interested in this world, and I'll link to it in the description. I even took that course without any intention of working in the commercial space, and I learned a ton. And that's not an affiliate link or anything, I just think he did a great job. The final way you could make money in this world is probably the hardest, but also maybe the most exciting. These days, one of the most effective ways to raise funding for a personal project is by having an audience to share it with. And in my opinion, the best place to have an audience as a documentary filmmaker is YouTube by a mile. If you can build yourself up a solid YouTube following, I think you'll find pretty quickly that opportunities for new projects come in from lots of places at once. A brand might reach out and offer to sponsor you in exchange for a shout out, or a nonprofit might help with a hard cost because you're helping it to raise awareness about a certain issue. You could even get to the point where you're making enough from AdSense and affiliate links to live on full time and make whatever you want. Of the three paths I talked about today, this is definitely the hardest one to get off the ground, but I actually think it has the biggest long-term potential. The ability to grow an audience, which might help to get personal projects made, is actually the reason I started this YouTube channel in the first place. I have a tiny channel by any standard, and I know it's going to take years of work before I can get it to a point where it's actually funding anything. But once you put in the time, it's something that's yours alone. Now, I love working in the mainstream documentary industry as a DP, but when COVID hit, I lost most of my jobs, and I realized that I wasn't actually in control of my professional life. It's amazing to go out and shoot on high-budget docs for people like Netflix or Nat Geo, but when the phone doesn't ring, you're kinda stuck. The appealing thing about a YouTube channel is that no one can tell me when I can and can't make stuff. It might seem like it's impossible to gain any traction on YouTube these days, but you'll never know unless you try, and I truly believe that if you put in the time, things will work out eventually. Even if you're just starting out, share your journey because others will be able to relate. Peter McKinnon is probably the biggest name out there in the YouTube filmmaking world, and some of his first videos were just him eating food and filming himself. He's deleted them, I think, but the point is that he wasn't some amazing professional when he started. Fast forward to now, and I'm pretty sure if he wanted to shoot a personal project, I think he'd have no problem lining up the funding. If I were starting out from square one again, building an audience would be where I'd start. So says the guy who waited 10 years to start his own channel, but better late than never.
10 years later.
I wish I could tell you to just go out and make a documentary and then sit back and wait for the cash to come rolling in. But sadly, that's not the way it works. It is absolutely worth doing, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but when you're starting out, you're gonna need to find a way to pay the bills until things start rolling for you. The three paths I mentioned in this video are just some of the ways that you can help subsidize your documentary addiction. And if you found another way, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Hope that video was interesting, and if you got something out of it, maybe think about hitting that subscribe button so I can work on growing this channel. And if you liked it, maybe check out this other one about 5 mistakes new filmmakers should avoid at all costs. See ya.